All right, let's dig a little bit more into the Small Business Accelerate methodology. How are you going to grow your business? Well, right now, today, you're with your current customers. They're the people who buy your product or use your service today. Well, we definitely, tomorrow, want to retain them. We don't want to lose those customers. This is very important. But we also want to find other customers with a very similar problem as your current customers. We call them adjacent customers. They're people you may not know, may never have met, they may never have really reached you today, but they can benefit from your product today. We also want to learn what are problems you can solve with your technology, your product or service that the current customers may not be excited about, but new customers, these guys over here, they're going to love. This gives you the opportunity to retain, expand, and grow your customer base. This is the theory of revenue building. We're going to first start with a deep understanding of your current market problem. We want to know where your customer's head is, where their problems are, what solutions look like for them. So let's dig in. Now, in defining a market problem, we want to really say, why do we care? What's the big deal about your product or service offering? Why should customers be interested? So first, spend a moment to write down the problem you think you're solving. Now, we talked about the shape of the lock just a moment ago. That's the problem. What is the shape of that lock that people have? Tell me what that problem is. All right, now that you've had a chance to write down that problem, let's discuss a model market. So let's talk about coffee. Well, I mean small business. It's something very close to my heart. What do you normally purchase at a coffee shop? What does that look like to you? From your observations, what do other people purchase? Well, obviously they get coffee, but many other products are often included. Okay? How does a product of coffee or other things differ when you go to different places offering coffee? Let's start at your home. That's interesting, isn't it? What about your house? What about the kitchen at your workplace? That's a market. You probably pay for it in a pool or out of your company profits. What about Starbucks or another chain like this? Or a local shop that someone locally may own, like this one over here? What about a gas station? That's the best type of coffee, isn't it? Yeah. What if you go eat breakfast at a restaurant, at a breakfast place? What does that coffee look like and taste like? What if you go to a fancy restaurant, like the Driscoll, downtown in Austin? How will that coffee be? Is it the same? Let's talk about that for a moment. When you're getting coffee, you're solving a problem. It's sometimes very different than you expect. Consider the taste and stimulation you receive when you take a big swig of Joe. What's the hunger or need for caffeine you may be needing? What is it solving? What about socially and emotionally? What is happening while you're drinking coffee? Do you get more work done with coffee or less work done? Are there technologies involved in coffee? Oh, many, many. How do these problems differ by type of coffee that may be provided? Think for a second. Which is the biggest solution, biggest problem solved in a local store? What does it look like to you? How about in a chain store or a restaurant, a convenience store such as a gas station? Or how about if you're at the farmer's market? Think that maybe at a local store, you're really about the social and emotional connection that happens as I'm drinking coffee with a friend. At a chain store, I'm often just getting the caffeine fix. Fill her up, please, and I'm out the door. But I also may want to pick up a snack or other things along the way. At a restaurant, again, it may be about that social connection. A convenience store or gas station, it's probably about the things I'm buying with the coffee. And a farmer's market, that's where I may be really in about the taste, the stimulation. That also may apply to the local store as well. So different things draws me to different channels of coffee. So what does the coffee market look like? Let's consider this market in two different perspectives. First is top down. This is looking at the total industry size, its structure, the players, and broader trends. Then we're going to look at bottom up. This is the experience and opportunity from the individual user's perspective. And we want to talk about how we can aggregate individual users' experiences to define segments. Segments are commonly acting people who have common needs and common wants in a product. So, examples of top-down analysis. This could involve you understanding how many people drink coffee and consume in the United States every year, and looking at it on a year-by-year basis. It may be looking at how coffee compares from country to country, how it compares across region to region. It may be looking at the number of stores per 100,000 residents in different communities. When do you get saturated with too many coffee stores so that a new one really can't make any money? Which countries are best to sell coffee in? Who wants coffee to go rather than coffee in the house? These are all ways to begin to understand from the top down what your market looks like. Bottom up starts with individuals. You may ask, where do people drink coffee? And you ask people through a survey or meet them and interview them, and you found that very different ways coffee is practiced in America than, let's say, on other to-go countries where coffee is almost always taken somewhere else. We start at home, drinking our first cup of joe. We can ask about different age groups, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and others. Who spends the most on food? Who spends the most on coffee? Who would be your best customer if you're building a coffee shop? We can look at how people consume during breakfast hours, during other starts of the day versus later in the day. We can look men and women differences and how they drink coffee. And we can look at students and how in high school and college they drink coffee. Each of these allows us to build a model for what is being drunk from a coffee cup. So let's do a little research on your own. We have a few methods we're going to suggest you use. First is exemplified in what we showed. It's called Googling. Ask a question and get an answer from secondary data about the big market. This works best from the top-down point of view. You can understand size, needs, number of competitors in a region, the growth characteristics, many things about other people offering a similar product in your market by simply Googling. But when you're wanting to go bottom up, when you're really wanting to understand the problem, you got to talk to people. You got to go where the customers come together. So if you're going to sell based on taste and experience, go to a local shop. Go to a local farmer's market to understand those users' problems. If you're looking to make cheap, bad coffee, go to a convenience store. Go to a gas station. Those people will tell you what they'll drink and what they won't drink. You may want to conduct a survey where you'll share this maybe by Instagram, maybe by Twitter, maybe by Facebook, to share the survey to look at a lot of people in your region. What do they want in a product? What problems do they experience? How would they like to experience the product once it's been used? Those are great questions you can ask many people and get more answers than who you can talk to in a single day. Finally, you need to observe your customers. How do they walk? How do they talk? How do they dress? What do they value? This is something you need to know very well. You need to understand what the voice of the customer is, what their motivations are, and how I can spot them in a crowd. So it goes much beyond Googling. So this is the kind of work I want you to do. Start with Googling, but then get into talking to people, possibly doing a survey, but always observing them. How do they act and move? So let's think for a moment, how does this apply to your problem in your market? What ways do you reach to your customers? Is it by phone? Is it by email? Is it by Facebook, Yelp, Instagram, Snapchat, other tools? How do you reach them? This gives you a way to reach out and, quote, talk to them virtually, as well as set up appointments to talk to them in person. Get out there and begin to learn what the problem is. Let's discuss homework for session 1, defining your market problem. I'm going to put the coffee aside because now it's about your business and not about a model product. So let's do it. Here are the directions. First, let's start thinking about the problem you're solving. To do this, talk to 10 customers. Ask them, why do you buy my product or use my service? What is the problem that my product or service is solving for you? When you lack my product or service, what's the effect on your lifestyle, on your emotions, on your money? What does it look like? Can they do without you, or do they must have you? Talk to them. Listen. Write down some answers. Now, talk to 10 people who are not your customers. Ask them, do you have a similar problem as blank, the consensus problem that was given to you by your customers? Don't tell them what you think, tell them what your customers are thinking. Ask them, do you have a problem like this? Listen. Do they? How does the problem affect their lifestyle, their emotions, their money or economics? Now, how did they solve that problem? Did they use a competitor? Did they just ignore it? Is there already someone dominating the market? Or are they looking for a solution? That would be interesting, looking for a solution. So, I want you to capture your data in this slide. So right over here you see the current problem. This is the problem you're going to find that is really the consistent problem. It's noted by your customers. But as you listen to the new customers, and maybe some of your own, you may hear what we call a latent problem. This is a problem that you didn't expect. It's an aspect of the problem that you may be able to solve, but you never thought about it before. State the general nature of the problem in this first line. What did you hear from your customers, and what does that latent problem look like in a summary? Then talk about its impact on their business logistics, on the timing of their products and their actions, on their competitiveness to do their job, on their emotions, on how maybe their customers or clients or other value parties experience what you do. How does it affect their reputation? Does it affect their profitability? And then finally, how and what needs to be minimally in a solution? So we first see the impacts. Not all of them will apply, but you may find them aggregating into emotions, timing, or maybe customer relations. Make sure you note those things from the notes you've taken during the interviews. But each one of them, your current customers as well as your new customers that you may be able to get, they're going to tell you what has to be minimally in the product. List those characteristics. You want to know them because that's what we call the minimum viable product. If you lack one, people often do not buy because it does not solve their complete problem. So, characterize your problem now. Why is this problem urgent? Why does it need attention now? And why does it need an immediate solution? Write an answer summarized from the table you filled out. What are the major costs, emotional, financial, temporal, logistical, business, that are experienced by your customers when you do not solve their problem? When that problem is just sitting there, experience, what does it mean for them? What is the minimum solution that your customers are demanding? Write that answer directly from the table. Don't describe your product or service. I don't care about your product or service. I care about the mind and desires of your customers. What is their experience and what do they want in the product? Okay? Then finally, this last question. Describe what your customers, as an aggregate group, really minimally need. Get that down clear in the experience as well as in what is the operation or design of the product. So we want to know what minimally needs to be in the design, but we also want to know what the minimum outcome and experience needs to be. That tells us when we're on the right track to understanding the problem deeply. Now, take the answers from that previous exercise and summarize them in this key problem statement. Describe who your current customers are. Tell us where you find them. What would you describe them as? And they're part of some sort of segment. It may be people who go to school, people who work hourly, people who work in salary jobs, people who drive trucks, people who drive sports cars. What does it look like? Characterize them so we understand their buying habits, their problems, and their needs, so we can pick them out of a crowd. How do they experience their problem? Describe the ways that that problem impacts their business life and tell us reasons it impacts them in their lifestyle and in their economics. What are, again, the effect is on their life and on their pocketbook. Why is this problem urgent? Urgent problems hit both elements. Take that data, this great bottom-up data, and let's do a little bit of Googling. Who are people like them? So let's start with the problem as been defined by your customers. Use the top-down method. Use some keywords and try to understand what are the sizes, the numbers of people that are involved in that problem. Some macro trends and some articles. What's telling you what's happening in this area? Is it about coffee? Is it about food? Is it about yard work? Is it about providing new technology for hanging pictures? What is it? And why? What are other people saying about it? Is it growing or not growing? And finally, take the data that you've gathered in this piece, this impact of what the problem's name is and how it's affecting. Tell me more about those customers. Look up about them so you understand who could be your customers. Where do they most likely land? Is it a geography you can find in a map? Is it a gender? Is it a behavior? Is it do they work in a certain place? Do they drive a certain car? Where will you find these people most likely? Use Google to help you find some of these answers. This gives you a deeper understanding from just your customers to how it fits into a broader picture. That's your homework. You got some work to do this week. Talking to 10 people, that are your customers, talking to 10 people who aren't, aggregating and working through that data to know what they're telling you about their problem and minimally what the solution is, and then now doing some Googling to find where I find more people like that and what are the trends about this. This is the key part of lesson 1 of defining your market problem. Get to work. We're going to be talking about your results this week at Small Business Accelerate. Until then, see you later.